Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the world of George R. Martin, the mastermind behind Westeros. But we're not just talking about his books today, we're unpacking his deeply intense year of 2026, pulling direct insights from sources like InTouch Weekly, Entertainment Weekly, The Hollywood Reporter, and Variety. We are going to explore a 12-month period of absolutely profound extremes. Seriously, it's a year where the creator of some of the most dramatic stories of our time experienced a narrative that was just as tumultuous in his own real life.
So to really understand where Martin is at, we've got to anchor this narrative right in his own words. On August 3rd, 2026, he posted this on his blog. Some great things, exciting things, dreams coming true, but there have been nightmares too. That quote perfectly nails the emotional whiplash of his year. We're looking at a creator caught squarely between these staggering professional peaks, the dreams coming true, and some very, very heavy personal nightmares.
Section 1. Breaking the Silence, the Personal Toll. Okay, let's start with how he opened his August blog post. He titled it Better Late Than Never and kicked it off with a touch of that classic, self-deprecating humor of his, just simply asking his fans, "Remember me?" He was totally open about the fact that since February 19th of that year, his blog had been run entirely by his assistants. He affectionately calls them his mighty minions, by the way. He admitted they had to step in and take over because he simply couldn't keep up with the demands of updating the fans himself. But, that humor gave way to a much heavier reality pretty quickly. He described the year as overwhelming and stressful and offered this incredibly raw confession. He wrote that he had battled sadness and depression, and even dropped this haunting line, "The worst may be yet to come." It is incredibly striking when you think about it. The master of emotionally devastating fiction, a guy who has put his characters through unfathomable grief, is now experiencing a real life that heavily mirrors the themes of his own stories. He actually pointed out in the post that if you've read his books, well, you already know that this is, tragically, just life. And a huge source of these recent struggles really comes down to just a single number, 77. Martin turned 77 in September of 2025, and as he navigated his 77th year throughout 2026, the physical and mental realities of aging became absolutely impossible for him to ignore. He definitely didn't sugarcoat the physical toll. He bluntly wrote, "Getting old is no fun." This actually echoes a super candid admission from an earlier interview with The Hollywood Reporter, where he flat out admitted he never thought he'd even live to see 77. He confessed to dealing with what he calls old people stuff, like lower back pain. But beyond the physical aches, there's a really heavy mental burden here too. He admitted that despite having an amazing team, he just keeps falling further and further behind on his work. For a creator carrying that much pressure on his shoulders, the physical and mental friction has to be immense. All right, moving to Section 2, a thriving empire, the professional highs. Because 2026 absolutely wasn't just a year of shadows for him. His franchise was a total unstoppable juggernaut. 9. That is the staggering number of nominations secured by A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, the new prequel series based on his Dunk and Egg novellas. In 2026, this show literally stormed the 78th Primetime Emmy Awards. And we aren't just talking about niche categories here. We're talking cross-platform domination. It grabbed the big one, Outstanding Drama Series, along with nods for costumes, hairstyling, visual effects, stunts, music, sound, production design, and cinematography. Martin noted he was incredibly proud of his team ahead of the September 14th ceremony at the Peacock Theater, though he did express this slightly wry disappointment over missing out on acting nominations, joking that there's always next year. Interestingly, he also cryptically mentioned that his actual attendance at the Emmys would depend on a lot of things. Now, this success just feeds right into an even larger television empire. House of the Dragon Season 3 was another booming hit in 2026. This 8-episode adaptation of the Targaryen Civil War, drawn right out of his book Fire and Blood, premiered on June 21st to fantastic reviews and ratings. It just wrapped up its massive cultural footprint on August 9th, complete with the highly anticipated Battle of the Gullet. But the success didn't even stop at TV. 2026 was the year Martin conquered the stage, too. Game of Thrones: The Mad King, which is this massive 4-hour stage prequel produced by the legendary Royal Shakespeare Company over in Stratford-upon-Avon, had its official, completely sold-out opening night on August 8th. The production was just packed with prestige, featuring a stacked cast bringing absolute icons like Aerys II, Rhaegar, Ned Stark, and Robert Baratheon to life on stage. You had Michael Schaffer, Noah Ritter, Michael Ababugar, and Callum Woodhouse absolutely killing it. Seeing his creations reach these massive theatrical heights actually prompted Martin to admit that it is so incredible that sometimes I fear I am dreaming the whole thing. And that perfectly captures his awe, right? It reinforces just how completely surreal it must be to watch your intellectual property achieve this level of prestige and dominance, all while you are personally struggling just to keep up with your own daily life. This brilliantly illustrates the core dichotomy of Martin's 2026. On the one hand, you have these stark personal lows, the depression, the grief of losing friends, the painful reality of aging, and the overwhelming stress of falling behind. Then, on the other hand, you've got these unprecedented professional highs, 9 Emmy nods, dominant hit TV shows, and a sold-out Royal Shakespeare Company play. It's a truly stunning contrast between severe personal exhaustion and almost commercial invincibility. Which brings us to Section 3, the elephant in the room, the winds of winter. Because this intense collision of personal turmoil and professional triumph inevitably forces us to ask the dramatic, unavoidable question that literally every single fan has been screaming into the void for well over a decade now. Where is the winds of winter? Fans scrutinize every public statement for a clue, and 2026 was absolutely no different. When you map out the timeline of 2026, the silence speaks volumes. After his self-penned blog post in February, the spring just brought more disappointment when his publisher officially shot down rumors of a fall 2026 release. Then, in that highly anticipated, deeply personal August update we talked about, there was absolutely zero news about the 6th book. Nada. When you factor in the personal toll he confessed to, his age, and all the time spent on other projects like the Fire and Blood sequel and even more Dunk and Egg novellas, the continued non-updates start to make a very clear, if incredibly frustrating, kind of sense. So the crucial takeaway here is this. While fans might totally despair at headlines announcing further delays, Martin hasn't abandoned Westeros. He has previously insisted that giving up on the series is a scenario he deeply, desperately wants to avoid. Leaving it unfinished, in his very own words, would be a total failure. The will to finish the story is definitely still there, even if the timeline is totally obscured by the friction of his current reality. Finally, Section 4, the legacy, celebrating the man behind the myth. As we look at his legacy, it's really worth taking a step back. His real-world struggles, as difficult as they are, actually deepen our understanding of the art he has given the world. He closed out his reflections on the year with a really grounded philosophical takeaway. Despite all the nightmares, he noted, there have been amazing times as well. I suppose that's just life. It is a sobering reminder for all of us. The architect of the sweeping, brutal, and beautiful fantasy universe is navigating the exact same messy, extreme, and unpredictable realities of life that we all do. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Will the intense personal battles of 2026 ultimately make the final chapters of Westeros even more profound? When a creator is living in such incredible extremes, battling profound sadness while reaching the literal pinnacle of commercial success, that emotion inevitably bleeds into the ink. The wait for the final books absolutely continues, but our understanding of the man writing them has never been clearer. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and remember, winter is coming.